Hey everyone, welcome to our small footprint. My name is Nyssa, and if you're new here, we are a family of 8 who live off-grid in Australia. You'll have to excuse the sun. It's gonna hit me in a weird spot because it's that time of the afternoon out here. As always, when I'm trying to do these voiceovers, it is like 4:30 in the afternoon. I'm getting this in just before I get dinner done, but the sun is just starting to set over there, and we'll see if it drops down. But you'll just have to bear with me. Most of it you won't be looking at me anyway. So this is the second video in May of my kitchen. So basically these videos are the food prep, planning and preservation of all the food that I do after the grocery hauls. So this one was a 2-month grocery haul, and we're working on getting everything sorted, and these videos are to show you how we do it. So welcome to my kitchen for the next couple of days, and we'll see what we got done, and ask me any questions in the comments, and I'll see you at the end. We had sort of like 4 boxes of tomatoes. 2 of them were seconds boxes, 2 of them were paid in full boxes, and we kept a bunch of those aside that were still really good to eat, but I'm still working through those as well before they go bad. We want to make sure that we eat them whilst they're still good. So make the most of having those fresh tomatoes at this time of year. For lunch, I decided to make corn tortillas. So I mixed up the dough. Before I did that, I mixed up a dough for French bread. It's a bit of a thing I'm trying to get just right, with the idea of freezing with roasted garlic butter and foil, so I can pull them out as garlic bread as a side. So I can make the French bread loaves. I can slice, once they're cold, I can slice them. I can slather them in the roasted garlic butter, wrap them in foil, stick them in the freezer, and then the kids or us, whoever wants to eat them, can pull them straight out of the freezer, stick them in the barbecue in the foil, and cook them for 15 minutes, and they've got fresh garlic bread to have as a side to a meal, or even just as is, and then they can slice it and top it however they want. Just a form of bread to go in the freezer to be used however they want to do it. But I'm still figuring out the size of the loaves and the consistency of the dough that I'm after. There's plenty of recipes out there for French bread, plenty of recipes out there for baguettes, and I've tried a whole bunch of them, and I'm just not finding exactly what I'm after. Now, a lot of that could just be temperature, flour choices and things like that. It's not necessarily the recipes, and I think that that's a bit of a thing with bread, is that even if you try everyone else's recipes, or you guys try my recipes, flatbread's a bit different. That recipe should work for anyone because it's flatbread, but other loaf type breads, there's so many things that can impact the success of that. Your preference of texture for working with, for shaping and stuff, the flour that you're using, the humidity of the environment, the temperature that you're proofing, and there are so many variables that affect how a dough will work. So for me, I'm looking for the best recipe that works for us to get me what I want to do. But a lot of the problem I'm having too is figuring out what weight I want each roll to be like a family size garlic bread, I suppose, because I'm not looking for it to be a loaf bread. I want it to be a garlic bread. I don't know if that makes sense, but I did order some baguette pans, and I actually think they should hit the post office tomorrow. So when I get those, I'm going to keep on experimenting with those, and that might help me get a more consistent size for what I'm after. In the meantime, I've made variations of this dough all week. So I mixed that up first in the using the KitchenAid and put it aside to proof. After that, I mixed up the corn tortillas. Corn tortillas are around about 50-50 with water and masa, and with a little bit of salt, but I like to add the water bit by bit. So I weighed about 1 kilo of the masa, or half the bag, and then started adding warm water to it and mixing. Adding water to the point where it will come together in a ball, but it won't stick to your hands. It took me quite a while to figure out just the right consistency, so that when it sticks together, but it doesn't break when you try and flatten it. And I think that's just something you've got to work on, and again is really going to depend on how you're doing it and your environment. So it was something that I worked on for quite a while. I'm pretty happy with where I judge it at now. So I put that aside to hydrate for a bit, because it does get a little, like the masa does pull in a little bit more liquid as you go, and sometimes I find that if I put it aside for 15 minutes and then I just put a couple of drops of water in it afterwards, then it hits just the right texture. I don't know if that's the way it's supposed to work, but that's how it's worked for me. The French bread dough was ready to shape, so I tipped that out and shaped it in some baguette style shapes to go for its second proofing before it gets baked. This ended up, I went for 3 loaves with this, which ended up being too large, but we'll, as I said, I'm working on it. Nyssa sent me a bunch of bits and pieces recently off my Amazon wishlist and some extras for us to try that she thought the kids might like. There was the cashew faux parmesan we used the other week as one thing, and one of the other things was this tortilla press. Now, I have a smaller one, I think it's 8 inches, but corn tortillas in it can be difficult. I think because you end up with thick and thin because you can't put the even pressure without it spreading too much on one side and spurting out. So I was hoping the larger surface area might help, and this one came with some round cutouts of non-stick parchment paper as well. Maybe it's waxed, I'm not real sure, but it's got a really nice surface to it. It's kind of slippery on one side, and it helped immeasurably with getting these done. So I did around about my 50-gram balls and rolled them, placed them in the center, and then firmly pressed on the press without putting too much weight behind it, and it worked wonderfully. I do think that that extra surface area is beneficial for these. I fried them off in a dry pan, slowly but surely, and then put them in a bowl with a lid to stay soft. I want to get one of those ceramic tortilla bowls that I've seen advertised in... There's some Mexican stores online that sell masa and stuff like that, and they have some of these really nice looking ceramic bowls that you put your tortillas in to stay warm and steam and soft. And I really like that idea. I just like the aesthetic of it, I suppose, which is a bit silly, but any plastic container would work. I just don't really have anything that's the right shape to put them in and put a lid on. I did buy a Tupperware one a while back when they had them on special, but the lid got broken, so it doesn't seal as well, and it hasn't worked as well as I would like. So I just put them in a bowl with any lid to stay soft, but they're ending up a little bit curved because the bowl's curved. I didn't get footage, I think because I had Darryl cooking the rest of it off while I did it, but I did put together the rest of the tortillas off while I was doing it. But I put together a simple pico de gallo, some onions, chilies and diced tomatoes, lime juice and stuff. I also remember that we had those avocados to use up as well, so that came at the grocery hamper, so I bought a box of avocados. I want to make sure I get them used. So I mixed that through as well, and then it's not really pico de gallo anymore, but it's still super tasty, and we would have put the avocado on separately anyway. We would have put the pico de gallo on and then the avocado, so realistically we were just, skipping a step. So I grilled up some mushrooms for Darryl to have with it as well, and we just had it like that, the hot fresh corn tortillas with the avo and tomato mix. I did grill some cheese on mine to melt and then filled with the tomato mix, and the kids had some ham and stuff as well with theirs. I decided not to cook up any chicken or anything because there were plenty of corn tortillas. I actually think Surreal might have warmed up some black beans to go with it, so they might have had some black beans in there as well with the pico de gallo and the avocado. But I decided not to cook up chicken and stuff, and it just felt unnecessary. There was plenty there of the avocado and tomato mix and plenty tortillas for everyone to eat. So this is what the batch of bread looked like when it came out of the oven. It's much too large for the initial use that I'm thinking of, obviously, and it spread quite a bit, so I'm going to lower the hydration of the dough to try and get it a little bit more strength. The other thing is that I'm using warm water because the weather's cold, which then tends to make the dough a little more lax, so I'm working on it. I think the baguette pans will help too to keep the shape a little bit better, but yeah, I might make it a little bit stiffer too. The crumb is supposed to be nice and tight, so dropping the hydration won't impact what I'm after. So yeah, we'll give that a go. It was lovely and soft and tasty though, and we enjoyed it nonetheless. Later on in preparation for dinner, I cut up a pack of chicken thighs. This is the first one I've cracked for the month, I think, so I've got 7 more to deal with so far. Sliced it nice and thin like I do for frying. I seasoned it like normal with some cowboy candy, some garlic, some onions, some smoked paprika, lemon juice, a bit of oil, salt and pepper, and fried it off in the cast iron in batches so as to get that nice caramelization and crispy bits on it, not to stew in its own juices. I had managed to find some fresh flat rice noodles this month in Woolworths, I think it was. Mind you, I went back looking and they're out of stock now, so it'll be interesting. They were really cheap too. They were only like $3.50 for a kilo of them, and now the only ones I can find online are like $3.50 for 500 grams, like twice the price. So that'll suck if I can't find them again. I will have to ask in the Asian store. Every time I go in, I go looking for them. I don't find them myself, but I haven't actually asked anyone in there before because they're always busy. So I'll have to make a point of asking though, because this was the first time I tried them and I was really happy with them. So I really like char kway teow or ho fun or anything that has that wide flat rice noodles, but it's not something I've been able to replicate at home. I have successfully made rice noodles once or twice with the Philips extruder pasta maker, which I do own, but I find it very difficult and I don't use that machine often. I tried steaming them once, where you steam them and then slice them, and again it was very fiddly and time consuming and just not worth my time. I'm not a huge fan of dried rice noodles unless it's for things like rice paper rolls. They just don't get soft enough to compare to like a restaurant bought dish of ho fun or char kway teow. It just doesn't, it's just not quite right. Now the only dilemma here was the instructions on the packet said to microwave them in the packet for a couple of minutes and they would separate. I assume it's basically steaming them in the bag to separate them before stir frying them. We don't have a microwave. So what I did was I got my steaming pot out and I just put them in the top half. This worked, but I did have to go in a couple of times to remove the outside ones that had started falling off the main piece and put the main piece back in to continue the process. But it worked okay. It was a little more fiddly than just putting them in the microwave, but it did work. I cooked off some beans and broccoli. We did 2 pans full. Only one is in view here, I think, though. Added half the rice noodles, then added some of the chicken I'd already cooked up, stir-fried it all. Also scrambled a couple of eggs through it, which is very similar to, which is like what they do with the char kway teow. And used a dark soy stir-fry sauce, which also is part of a recipe for char kway teow. This does not come close to it though. For a start, the pans that I'm using aren't getting high enough heat and it's not being stirred around enough, and there wasn't enough oil in it, so some of the rice noodles stuck a little bit, things like that. I need to get myself a big wok, get it really hot, put oil in it, then put the noodles on, and then they'll get that charred but still bouncy texture, and then the dark soy sauce and things like that. But you know, this was really tasty anyway. So I don't claim this to actually be anything like it by the end, but it was very tasty. This is one of those dishes that we struggle with though, because a kilo of noodles is barely a meal for the 8 of us these days, even with 2 pans and full of vegetables and chicken. I have limited room in the pans. As I said, I'd like to get some big woks or something, and then I could add more vegetables and make it stretch further, but currently we fill the pans to the point where we won't toss stuff over the side when trying to stir, and that's the max, and we eat every skerrick of it. There's never any leftovers of these noodle dishes. The next day, using the bread I had baked before, I sliced it nice and thin, used a little ghee on it, and as it has been said, working through these tomatoes while they're good. I quartered some and put them in a hot pan to blister the skins, which is always super tasty. They get so sweet and really intense when you do that. Toasted the bread off in the pan in batches, spraying off the offside with a little bit of oil as I'm going to help it toast up nicely. I also fried up some mushrooms for Darryl and any of the kids who wanted them. I served the toast with a nice thick layer of avocado, some of those blistered tomatoes, and for Darryl his mushrooms, and some fried eggs over the top. I'm taking advantage of the times I have plenty of eggs. It's not always at the moment, but some days we have enough to enjoy them like this, and it's really nice to be able to do that. We did have a snack later that afternoon. Sonnet made some popcorn. We just put a bit of oil in a pan, a cup of popcorn seeds, let it go till the popping slows down and turn the pan off, and voila, a pot full of popcorn. We put a little bit of ghee over it to melt through. Now, the beauty of ghee is that unlike butter, it no longer has any water content, so you get the colour and flavour but without the popcorn going soggy. Of course though, you do need to add salt though, because ghee is not salted, and we like salty popcorn anyway. Another thing that Nyssa sent us was this salt and vinegar mix. Darryl's favourite thing is salt and vinegar, and I have purchased powdered vinegar before and attempted to make something similar, but it's never worked. The ingredients on this has a bit of sugar in it, which makes sense, most seasonings do, and sugar does bring out other flavours, much like salt does. So next time I might try grinding some salt and the vinegar powder with a little sugar and seeing if that kicks it up to this jar, because everyone loves this jar. There has been far more popcorn made this week than in the last month with this, and we're going to run out soon. I do make a bacon seasoning, and I have been run out for ages, and it is similar when I have that. So much popcorn. I do need to spend a day making it again. I have a few things that have run out that I need to spend the time. There's the instant porridge mixes, the instant soup mixes, hot chocolate powder, marshmallows, mushroom salt, and bacon seasoning. All of those things have run out, and I just haven't got around to making them. Part of it is that I need Thermomix bowls, multiple Thermomix bowls clean to be able to do it, and I just never seem to have it. For dinner I wanted to use up some of the roasted tomatoes, so I made a pasta sort of by the seat of my pants, which is, you know, what most of my meals are. I cut up a couple of onions, I melted some ghee in my pot and cooked them off till caramelized. Then I filled my Thermomix with the roasted tomatoes and pureed them well. Now we really want this smooth, because the problem with roasted tomatoes, if you don't peel the skins off, is that they do that curling stick thing and the texture is super unpleasant. So we need to make sure that all the skins are really well blitzed to avoid that. I poured a jug full of the tomatoes over the onion, and I think there was some garlic in there too. I let it come to a simmer and added a tin of coconut cream as well. I'll probably add some salt and pepper, maybe a dash of Worcestershire sauce here as well, just to bump the flavour. I then cut up a bunch of broccoli from the fridge containers. I like to use the stems and florets to make it all nice and uniformly sized. Then I tossed it in the steamer so that it could par cook before putting it with the pasta. These containers are working beautifully to prolong the life of the veg in the fridge for usage. I definitely need to make the same effort next month to use them, because they have kept the vegetables perfectly good for 2 weeks. Like, they've done really well. I diced up some of the chicken that was cooked last night. Each tray is generally about 2 kilos, and depending on how we're using it, we might get 3 meals out of it. When it's cooked like this, it is not normally the star of the meal. Unlike when I say make the crackling chicken, we ate 2 full trays of that. There's less weight per tray, but maybe like 1.8 kilos or so of it in one meal, because it's served as whole pieces, which is partly why I like to cook it off and dice it up like this. And at the beginning of the month, we have so many veggies that we can really drop the quantity of meat and just compensate with veggies. So I diced the pre-cooked chicken again, cutting it even smaller, makes it go even further. Added it to the pasta sauce as well as the broccoli, then the chicken can come up to temp in the sauce. I also added a cup of the pasta water to help it thicken up and make it nice and silky. I cooked up a couple of packs of the penne. This was the Aldi brand one. I've got a few brands to try this month to see if we have a preference of one over the other. I don't normally buy a lot of dried pasta for my consumption, so I just wanted to be able to try a couple of different brands and see if there's one that I preferred, because I'm a little fussy. Nobody else is, but I am. And then poured the sauce over the top. This is one of those meals where the garlic bread would be a good side, just as a little bit extra. I may end up having to cook 3 bags of pasta per meal if all 8 of us are eating the same meal eventually, because I normally like there to be a little bit of leftovers for the kids to munch on the next day. And with 1 kilo of pasta like this, there's rarely anything left over. Sometimes I make pasta for the kids only, and Darryl and I have something else. At those times they have leftovers because we aren't eating out of the 1 kilo, so it's not too much more that is required to allow for those leftovers, but it is nice to have. I had a few people ask me to show them what custard apples look like when they were ripe, so I wanted to show you guys, though my filming leaves a bit to be desired. So this is what the inside looks like. Once they're ripe, you just pull chunks apart, and inside it has these flakes. It reminds me a little bit of like fish flakes. In some of the flakes are black seeds, but not in all of them, and they all just come apart with a gentle tease. All the flakes just fall apart, and all, you know, just the juice can run down your elbows while you're eating them, and they are very, very sweet. The flavour to me is reminiscent of the monstera fruit, or maybe even pawpaw. The riper it gets, the more overwhelmingly sweet it gets too, almost too sweet. I'm not a huge fan personally, but I don't like monstera or pawpaw either. The kids ate a bunch of them, but as is normal with fruit like this, it all ripened at once, and therefore we didn't get through it all. So what I got Sonnet to do was pull all the flakes apart and remove the seeds. She put it all in a Ziploc bag for me. And then I cut the corner of the Ziploc and squeezed it into ice trays to freeze. That way I can use it in their smoothies, because it's so sweet it will add a lot of sweetness to them without needing other sugars and sweeteners in it, because this will be it'll be super sweet. I can use it in their smoothie pops and things like that, and it will add that sweetness without adding other things. I think it'll work. I don't know. It's an acquired taste, but it's just a fruit, so it's just a tropical fruit. I'm hoping it will work. I have discussed my need for some ice trays with lids, but finding them has been hard because they're expensive. I did have some on my Amazon list, but they just felt too expensive for what they were. Ethel sent me these and a variety that is slightly smaller. These aren't the ones I had listed, but I did find them, so I'll link them. One of the many problems with Amazon is the huge amount of the same style of thing available. So you can go looking and looking and not necessarily end up with the one that is the best value. But I really like these. These are really nice. The lids kind of clip over the edges rather than just sitting on top, and they're very sturdy. They hold themselves really well when carrying them. I will be buying more of these. I'll put the link down below, and I will swap them out on my wish list for the other ones too, because the ones that I picked are much more expensive than these, because, as I said, Amazon, it's really hard to find those things and make sure that you're getting the right choice. So that was another couple of days of the food prep, planning and preservation for May so far. I am a bit behind in posting them. So as I always say, I take all the footage, but it's getting out here to do these voiceovers that sometimes just really delay me in getting the videos out. There's plenty more to come though. We've got a whole lot of stuff to work through. And then we got the hamper, which if you've watched recently, we got the hamper video recently, and we have all those chilies to work through as well. So plenty to share. just a bit behind on sharing them. I really need to figure out my routine a little bit better, but change of season has thrown me and the buildings. So I will do a chat video. I might do that on Sunday this weekend. It's my birthday Friday, so I don't know if we're doing anything out of the ordinary. I thought I might make pizza for dinner for my birthday, but we'll see. So other than that, I don't have anything planned, but I might do a chat video on Sunday while Darryl and some of the kids are at church or something, and I'll show off the building. We're still getting there. It's still not quite finished, but it's sealed at least, which is really nice. And we got our bed moved into the bedroom, and the girls have moved into their bedroom, and it's getting there. It feels like an extension on the house now rather than just a space, and we can get to it through the house and everything else, so that's pretty amazing. So I will share all that. Everyone's been keen to see what's going on with the building, so that's that. We also managed to pick up some second-hand insulated roof panels, really cheap. Darryl took a drive about an hour and a half away. I found some on Marketplace, and he drove and found it for me, so we can redo the roof for the kitchen. So once we get these rooms sorted, that's the next task. We are still on the lookout for a fireplace of some sort. If you've been around a while, you know I bought a couple of wood stoves. One of them is to be used in the kitchen, and the other one was a small one that I actually bought beforehand that I probably won't use in the kitchen, but we were going to use as the heating for the new space, except that it's a Everhot 150, which is an older model, which has a smaller flue size than others, and we're having trouble finding flue for it. And I've been trying to find some fireplaces at a decent price on Marketplace, but it's really the wrong time of year to be trying to find something at a decent price. I found a really good one, and actually James was going to pick it up for me because it was local to him. It came with a hearth and came with the flue and the fireplace and everything else. I organised it with the guy, said that James would pick it up the next day, and then he decided that there was someone else offered more money and he took that. So that's what it is with dealing with Marketplace, unfortunately. But I'm still keeping an eye out. Darryl has to go to Toowoomba next week for an appointment, so I'll make sure to check. Guinea fowl say good evening. I'll make sure to check before he goes in, just in case something happens to be listed, but I don't hold out hope. It is the wrong time of year to be getting something cheap. They're selling for more money because people are looking for them. So, but anyway, that's it for this video, and I will see you guys on the next one. I will try and get one more food video out, and then I might do the chat video. We'll see how the week progresses, and I will see you guys later. Thanks for watching.